Welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. Join Janet and her friends as they gather at the intersection of consciousness and self-experience, what being consciousness in human form is all about. Access heart-centered awareness with them and feel the difference in the moment that will last a lifetime.
Hello and welcome to Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet. I'm Janet Barrett, sometimes host, sometimes guide, sometimes without definition, but always friend. I want to thank you for joining me here at the intersections of consciousness and self. That means you are open to being more than you find yourselves to be at times. You are open to the reality of oneness, that we are all connected, all life on this planet and beyond. For all fits within the realm, the core of consciousness, which is an ever-expanding field of reference. In being present to this core, we are in heart-centered awareness, the field of unified consciousness. We are free of our personal boundaries and our stories that make up our sense of self, the individual and the collective we call consciousness. Those boundaries are only lines in the sands that are constantly shifting. They are only moments, in and out of time, in and out of form. What we call self is subject to influences of inner and outer dynamics, always a pressured, condensed, concise creation of a few bits of photons of light, bits of matter, and aligned in bandwidths of sound and vibrations and resonances, creating patterns in behavior and thinking and feeling. Each self, each of us, is unique and can redefine and change and shift in any moment depending on the rules we incorporated ourselves to be. Right now, this is our time we loosen up the pressure. We allow ourselves, right in this moment, to connect with our core of consciousness and let self relax. We allow time to be present and user-friendly and support you in being present. Breathe. Breathe in through your heart and feel the connection to your inner world of essence and the collective we call consciousness. Time is a quality of being in form. It provides a major way to align in our environments. As a sense, a quality, it is malleable and susceptible not only to our other physical senses, but also our emotional and mental constraints. Joining me this episode is my friend John Ashford Jr., who is an Access Consciousness facilitator among his many orientations. Together, we will explore the premise of time and its orientations of right now, exists always, in the realm of the infinite being. Infinite is the realm of the never-ending. Infinite being is the essence that transforms and transcends in and out of being in form that always is. The form, as self, is finite. Essence is infinite. In our framework today, time is important as a way to share common ground. It is a human observance and creation to build a sense of cohesive. It provides placement on this planet in this revolving cosmos. John was my guest on episode 6. You can find a more detailed biography posted there and at his website, www.beingjohnashford.com. Let me just say that John has always been an explorer on his spiritual journey. He has a Renaissance approach about life and enjoying it to the max. Growing up in Chicago, he started first in religious inquiry for several years, including life abroad in France and Spain. This foundation has led him through his work for 30 years with troubled youth and their families. Currently a juvenile court counselor from Multnomah County in Portland, Oregon, he has been part of many different programs of intervention and leadership over the years. He has provided training to different agencies in the United States on how to be more effective with families involved with violence and trauma. He facilitates for various organizations mediation and difficult, important conversations about what can challenge all of us in working and living together in being. Along the way, his abilities to sense and interact with the spirit realm have provided a framework for his current energetic practices and disciplines he now enjoys with those clients and helping others who feel disadvantaged or confused about life. He, too, like many of us, has found his way through different consciousness technologies, incorporating the latest in being present. He is currently enjoying working with Access Consciousness as a facilitator of BARS, ESB, and SOP. These new approaches better allow him to stay in the question of the moment and engage on deeper levels for his clients to show up in. You will find him in his garden, keeping up his black belt in Taekwondo, enjoying his meditation, and cooking. Music of all kinds provides the rhythms of life he embraces, and he delights in the worlds of superheroes and reality-bending movies. You can find him with a good book in the realms of poets and philosophers, such as Maya Angelou, Voltaire, Aesop, and Bernie Beinart. He is the creator of Being John Ashford. He says the following about being in his life. I consider myself a facilitator of consciousness. I've had tons of life experiences and formal trainings. My reality is that I'm not responsible for anyone being better. That is their personal journey. My job, if one chooses to work with me, is to facilitate change, bring magic, ask questions, and challenge them to live in the moment. What else is possible when we get stuck? I like this quote of Malcolm X, by any means possible. Hi, John.
Hey, Janet.
It's so nice to be with you, sweetie. Thank you so much for joining me here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's all our pleasures, isn't it? We're going to have fun. So I'll just warn the audience. Like it is with so many of my guests, that we will start somewhere and we don't know where we're going to wind up, but we trust that all is well, and especially with John, because John knows how to travel. And the show today is, we're going to look at the qualities of time. And if we allow time to be a sense, something that's malleable and changeable and responsive in the moment, and we like space. So it's like our eyesight and what we hear. And it has those kind of qualities to it. And what happens when we go to reorganize our awareness with it as such? So we have the qualities, and we'll get into those. But I think right now we just want to take a moment, and let's all see if we can start in one place, John. Yeah. so that we can enjoy ourselves. So everyone, just shift to whatever being present is. There we go. We're gonna just go breathe through the heart. Let yourself come into alignment. This is all pretty effortless. There's nothing to do. It's just opening our awareness up. And we can hold awareness on many different levels, times and spaces, and that's one thing John really excels at. So let's just be with him here and see what shows up over the next 45 minutes or so. Yeah. So there we go, everyone. And it's our willingness to be present. It's our courage and looking at life differently and willing to feel different and notice things and what that's about. So there's some definite themes that have been running through time and space for us, and we'll see how we relate to those. All right, John, what are you noticing in this moment?
I'm just noticing how, when you start talking about time, I start floating into space where
Recalibrating.
there really isn't no, there's really no such thing though as time. I think
Uh-huh.
time is that invention that we created so that we can make sense of where we be.
Mm.
Uh, it's, I've been saying lately for the last couple of years that I was telling people that people would say, describe what you are. And I said, I'm an infinite being. And by being an infinite being, that means I have had no beginning nor end. I've always been and will be. And it allows me to be able to play more with time, that concept of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
All right.
and
Wow.
practicing with just simple things like, I have had friends that told me stories about, leaving late for an airplane and folding time that they got there, like a trip that should have taken 45 minutes, they got there in 20 minutes.
Mm.
And I think that when we really start to become time, we're able to manipulate things in space because it's just a measurement. And once you come up with a new calculation of being, you can adjust the measurement.
Oh, gosh. Okay, everyone, just what this allows to be possible. John has introduced this whole, for some, a novel idea, and for those of us who play in this realm, he's articulated so that's interesting, in such a beautifully finite way, something that's so infinite.
Yeah.
And that's a joy. If one is an infinite being and there is no beginning or end, what happens in our organization of what we consider to be reality? So just notice, because he just blew off the top and the bottom, or the left side, right side, or however you have a sense of containment. He just removed that. And what happens when we can feel that in our reorganization? And today we thought we'd start with time because that's something that's really become important in the definition of self. Where we are, when we're there, when we're not there, and when we're engaged, and how our sense of reality shifts. What's shifting is our sense of time so often, how it elongates itself or shortens itself, and it has all these different qualities. So just breathe, everyone, because I think we just entered in an expansive state of fun. Oh boy. And there's kind of a breathless quality to that, isn't there, John?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but that can be. So everyone just be paying attention. This is not to challenge yourself, except in the most loving of ways. The idea, and there's no reason to not enjoy time. And maybe that's a concept that we have in this field awareness, John, is that we enjoy time as opposed to the dictates of it.
Right.
You notice the difference in that quality there. So what it would be like to expand time, shrink time, but realize it's something internally held, and then there's the environment around us that we have common places with, and so we have a 2:00, we have the day before yesterday, but they serve us in some way, but that's about it. What are you noticing, John?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of you saying, what would it be like to play with time?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've heard people say before, I'm running out of time, I never have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
What if you could actually manipulate that? Like, I know I catch myself, like I'm 56 this year. I'm like, oh my God, I've had more time in my rear my rear view mirror than in my windshield. And I say that, and I was like, well, why does it have to be that way?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what reality am I buying into?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not like, and I'm not saying I have no problem with the whole concept of maturing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to say olding because that's the difference, but maturing, I mean, it's just like, but what would it be like to, how do those individuals who walk through this world and in 80 they run in marathons
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing magnificent events at ages where most people say they're out of time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are they manipulating that they're not out of time? What don't they know that they don't have to play in this reality of this concept of time?
Oh, I like how you put that. What don't they know?
Yes.
Because it's what we think we know, that knowledge
Yes.
that gets in the way, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It sets the field define. Yeah, the boundary there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What rules are they playing by?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and what would happen if we all tapped into that?
We all tapped into that. Right. Well, do you think things would fall apart or would they just fall?
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, to put that in context, well, everything would change, and then who would I be, and what would I know? I mean, you can start to feel that happening for a lot of people because maybe time is a control mechanism for some.
right.
That's an idea. So before I forget, I want to mention the qualities of time and what those are, and it's the idea of the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future regarded as a whole, right? So that's what time means, and that's what we've ascribed it to be. And the qualities of time may be timeless in the sense that it's throughout, so we don't even think about it. There is the timely, which is the present, something's holding our focus. And then maybe there's other qualities about time that come to mind. What do you notice about time, John?
The older I get, I realize like, so I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of meditation, and
Mhm.
I'm always amazed on how time feels different in my meditation compared to when I come back out, and I say come back out to this
To the world.
meditation, to this reality. The
Uh-huh.
time factor is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's like I can go in and do a meditation and come out and it feels like maybe I've moved in my meditation 20,000 light years, but in this reality it was only 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what I noticed that when we start talking about time, depends on where you are, will affect the outcome of how you play with it.
Right. And how it shows up, right? Because you
Yes.
kind of described a couple of different experiences of time. So it was how our internal world is traveling and realizes that it's boundless and so it's limitless and you can go anywhere and do anything, and then you come back into the physical awareness that it's just been 15 minutes, but it's been miles that one cannot measure, right? So it's how our body holds the reference of time
Yes.
and placement and seasons and let me see, young and then maturity. I don't want to say innocence and maturity because that's not the right reference. The quality of being and this is where time is really evasive. I mean, it's everywhere. So how do you mark how many years you've been alive and not have a judgment in it, and the quality of when you're here longer, right?
Right.
So it's a convenience. It's a mechanism of convenience. Totally. It gives us a shortcut to saying, if you're 5 and here I'm 37, and the difference between the two, that's convenience to be able to reference those two different places. they're both you. And the challenge is when they're both active, when that
Right.
5-year-old is still active at 37.
Right.
And that's the truth of it. He's 50% of our decisions that we make as adults are based on the age of by 5. So when you come into that awareness, you go, what time am I in? And maybe that might be interesting to contemplate for people as they do their inner work, is to realize emotions have a sense of time, and information and memory are all about time, and it's how we relate to all this and what happens in the interaction.
And experiences will take you to time.
Oh, totally. Right.
I mean, you could think about, I can sit back and like, I love to cook, and I can remember times when I was in the kitchen with my mom, like it's present. I can go right back to that, so I can know the smells. I know what color of what she was cooking. You know, all those things, that the temperature of the room. Time also has that trigger, but so it can be positive and negative, because the same event that I enjoyed being in the kitchen with my mom could also, I notice, create another space for individuals who were caught in time with some type of trauma.
Yeah. Well, that's got a lot of energy around it. So just allow yourselves, everyone, to be in time with us. There we go. We all want to be in the, how present are any of us? We use the term being present, and that's without time as a reference, I guess. We're in the middle of it. So there's the past, so that's the marker of time, and it's not about the future, which hasn't happened, and that's time over there. So the now has no time to it, except it's totally surrounded by time.
Right. It's crazy.
Yeah. And then you go into your kitchen and you start fixing a meal, and you flash on, and I don't know that this is quite what you said, but you remember, or you hold awareness of when you had been there before, and perhaps making that dish with your mother, and what the elements were, and what that whole sensory experience was. And you could compare the two, or you can just realize that this is an extension of it, and maybe something that held a sense of time to it is now open again.
Right.
And maybe we're adding to it or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lots of fascinating different ways to be in information. Now, what do you notice about time for the people you work with and clients? Do you notice how we use it as a sense of control, or as a sense of placement, or in some way that it anchors them?
Yeah, well, I think that, so I think that time is entrapment here in this reality. And I think that from all, institutionally speaking, from when you work with institutions of any sort, they work with the fundamental of time being that measurement.
Okay.
And so what happens is that, you know, most classrooms don't set up a setting where you start to mess with time. So by the time I get a young person, if they've been in the school system, they're entrenched with trying to figure this time out. It's kind of funny. My clients that don't go to school seem to have a sense of more freedom.
Fluid time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's not structured around every half hour.
Because they haven't bought into the system.
Oh.
In one sense, which keeps them like out of what you want to say, this reality, but at the same time, it allows them to have a freedom to be able to play in time.
So that's where time is a discipline, almost.
Yes.
It's causing confirmation.
Yes.
We only have so much time, so this is how we're going to use it.
Right.
And it doesn't have a lot of variables in that. Okay, so we've got that, and then what happens? How is that? So you can, like anything, it can be good, bad, ugly,
Right.
whatever. It's how you use it. It's just a tool or a mechanism. But and if you do want something delivered, and that's why we have, that's why we have that standards of time.
Right.
Oh, now that's an interesting phrase. Standards of time. Yeah. We do seem to have internal clocks. So
Yes.
maybe it's not too far a projection, right? Because, we've all had the experience where we need to be up at a certain time, and irregardless of a clock going off or something, we're awake 10 minutes before, or right just before. And we have that clock that we can set, and we have the circadian rhythms that we play with. And notice when we travel often, they get out of alignment where there's certain rhythms and patterns. And so time can be a quality of, let's call it a quality. What if time was a quality? Ooh,
right.
Now that might be interesting. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely sensory based. How mind experiences time, how the body experiences time, how memories experience time. So you can have all these different dynamics and qualities, if we call them qualities, going on in the same space, right? And I think maybe that's why experience is malleable, or consciousness is malleable, or reality is malleable. Things only have the form that we give them. And whatever is more apparent in the moment is going to become the anchor or the centering device, the placeholder. And so that infinite being you're talking about is really, that is such a powerful place to be, because I think you're navigating on a much broader scale than how it takes to just get across the street. You can walk across the street and you could be walking across the cosmos. So what if time's user friendly? What if we're the ones who manipulate it, massage it, expand it, shrink it? But then it's also reactive to the morphic resonance of everyone else's influences of what their experience of time is. So where one might be holding that, I have all the time in the world, and the next person who's like, I don't have enough time, I'm running out of time. And then there's something that happens that leads us to conclude that there is no more time. Because we get faced with those choices too, that time has run out. And I have no time to dither about this anymore or worry about it. I have to do something now. And that's the power of now. What you got there, John? Oh, John.
Should be there.
Can you hear me, guys?
Hello?
Hello? I don't know what happened. I got lost in time. My computer just shut down. It's never done that. It's fucking weird. I've never seen that happen ever before. I'm sitting there like, what? It just went off. Like, no reason. I'm not even touching it. It must have got stuck in time.
Yeah, well, Skype just blew its wad. It
That
was
will-
really good too. Wherever we went, I was like, "Where the hell is he? John?"
I can't believe I'm just sitting here looking at my computer. It's like it's never done this. Stupid Dell computer.
No, I think it's her energy, sweetie. That's my excuse anyway.
It just went. I mean, it just went poof off and restarted. It started rebooting itself. I was like, "What the is it doing?"
All right. Well, if you will wait till it comes back on and feels good, I guess. So we have another. It looks like 15 minutes. So
Let's go for it.
okay, and we're back, and that was I don't know if that was a timely or a timeless or just a quantum leap, but we lost John there for a bit. So
I got caught up in time.
you got definitely, well, something got caught up in time. So let's see if we can regroup everyone. And, well, you guys out there are probably okay. It's him and I. So let's just notice John. We'll see where we are in time. I don't even remember what we were talking about. So that's definitely a quantum leap. And, I think that's important. Sometimes you don't need to know the details. You just enjoy the ride. And then you look to see where you are. So, okay. So what are we noticing, John? give us a heads up.
I'm noticing that time. There's no such thing as time.
Oh, is that what we lost?
Yes.
We lost.
And you really can't lose it because here's the thing that's kind of amazing. It kept moving, whatever that was.
Right.
It just took an interruption, and I think that's almost like a good example of how time can work. Because at any point you can come back to something if you are willing to be in that space. So time is very flexible if you allow it.
Right.
A lot of people get kind of upset with time. I mean, so there is a person that I know that I mentioned to you before. I guess I can mention that. Gary Douglas does classes in this program called Access Consciousness. And when they go for lunch, there's no time that they tell people to come back, which the first time I went to class, I was like, what the hell? What do you mean? He said, follow your sense of timing. And it's kind of remarkable because people all start to get back all at the same time without them saying, we'll be back here at 2 o'clock or 2:30. Around 2:45, everybody's in the room. And I'm always amazed that when you start manipulating the concept of something, it can show up as anything different.
Yes. Well, you can see how it gets used as a control mechanism.
Yeah.
As I think there's ways that we hold it as a reference of respect. I know that when I hold groups and different things, is that if it says a 7 o'clock start time, I want to start at 7 o'clock because I respect those people that are present for that, who were willing to change or do or adapt their schedule to be there and make a commitment. And there's some people that don't operate that way. But for me, that's where now, when it says we'll go from 7 to 9, I know that once we engage in my state of reality and reference, we start someplace, and that ending is open. And, I'm not so dictated, though I will be to the sense of those that I appreciate that has meaning for them.
Right.
And in coming to terms with how we all use time, and especially in business world, and when you've got school dates and you've got to pick up the kids and do these kind of things, it's a matter of respect and tolerance and juxtaposition. But we all know those people that for some reason seem to always be late.
Right.
Some people perhaps seem to always be early. I mean,
Right.
it can't just be as different. And for them, that could be that control and their rebellion. And we can empower all kinds of different emotions and dynamics into what we call a mechanical placement, 2:00. Right. So it makes it interesting. But I think what we just demonstrated was our willingness to allow time to be what it is and isn't, which can be very different things for each of us, and how all of a sudden the computer, that we might be using, it has a different reference of time totally, right? And it's like, well, what just became predominant here?
Right. It's crazy.
Yes, it is. So what else? What else are some of the considerations about how's it useful, right? I mean, what would be a good use of time? Like for your reference, where we're infinite beings, and the beginning and the ends are just markers, and not necessarily where life begins and ends. They're just placement holders. What would you offer people in the fluidity of being, because that's really what it is. It's the fluidity of being, I think, is what time is.
I think time, like, I think you've made a perfect reference before about the need of having it present. But the thing that I caution people with, it's like when you were saying something earlier about, okay, at the end of 9:00 we can be flexible. I think that if we were in grace with each other, time wouldn't be a great factor.
I love that.
So
okay,
I say this. So if I went to lunch, you and I go to lunch often, and if I went to lunch and for some reason you didn't show up, I wouldn't get upset.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that something, and if I couldn't call, I was like, well, I couldn't get a hold of it, and I know that Janet would call me eventually to let me know what happened. But I wouldn't get upset because of my relationship with you, that I know that you honor me. And I think there's sometimes a distrust that, well, why didn't you show up? You didn't honor me. No, if they do it numerous times, that might be a hint.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think that a lot of times there's no grace with time and each other.
Oh, yeah, I think those are wonderful considerations you've just mentioned. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And and this is helpful when you're playing in the same rule set,
Right.
sort of. You know what I mean? In that, what we share is what we're sharing. It's coming from both of us,
Right.
And appreciating how that fluidness, because neither you or I would want to pull away from something we're involved in if we need to be present in that moment. That is not a sign of disrespect to you. That's a sign of respect to what you've engaged in.
Right.
And it better me than someone else who's really kind of perhaps anal about
Right.
something happening or not happening, because there's like, oh, where is it? Did he remember? Did he forget? But there's also that, oh, okay, it feels all right. So something's going on, and we'll catch it. But I think that is grace, and that is ease, certainly, and it is respect. So look at all these qualities that are involved in time. What else would we might notice that time orients in time? There we go. Something about orients in time.
Right.
Well, I think there might be something about how it sets up how we can feel. And I mean that in the way that, so often people hold themselves as a personal life and a business life. And they're not the same person almost. It's an adjustment they make. They show up, they have a sense that they're different at work and they can, because they put a social face on, and then they get home and that silent internal conversation bursts out of them and they give voice to it where they wouldn't at work. I think that is something I'm aware of in this moment is, and how I like to be the same. I don't want to be ruled by time in that.
Yeah.
But we also, go ahead, sure.
I think it's the space of being, how do I say, of not allowing, not being a slave to time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'm not going to allow time to be like, I have to, like,
mm-hmm.
What would it be like? It's even to the point, like, I've even been able to manipulate, like, this sounds crazy. Like, when I wake up in the morning, very seldom do I need an alarm clock.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm actually able to be more in sync
mm-hmm.
with my knowing about it's
mm-hmm.
time for me to do something.
Uh-huh.
Which I don't have to. It's kind of weird, like, for a lot of things, like appointments and stuff that I have with kids. I know when to end an appointment because I know when somebody else is present, energy is present.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like being able to be, it's like being in time,
mm-hmm.
but not stuck in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's a shared reference is what time is, I think.
Right.
On a lot of levels. So you could be part of that. Yeah. Well, I think it all comes down to being user friendly. And if we reorient ourselves, and then it's not the dictate of the time. I think we use time as a scapegoat often also.
Right.
I don't have time to do that now. We'll have to get back to that. And it becomes a convenience excuse to get out of something, right? I don't have time to help you. As opposed to saying, that just really doesn't connect with me. Is there someone else who I can suggest it might be better for you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a way we've allowed it to become something that is useful or not useful. So,
yeah.
Boy, John, there's just a lot of quiet here, isn't there?
That's space, which is also partner with time.
Yeah, totally.
And that's the thing that I guess the other thing that I've learned to play with is that space and time.
Tell me more about space in time.
So many people are, like, when I'm meditating, there's so much space. I'd rather be in space than in time. Because space feels so abundantly expansive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it allows me to have more freedom. That's what occurs for me. So space and time together creates, like, there's times where I will walk at night in the backyard and I'll look up and I'll see the stars and I'll be like, and I can admire the space and time, and it's kind of funny how fast I can see that star is how fast I can travel in space.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, I'm not physically there in that 10 seconds, but if I make contact with it visually, I can perceive it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes any sense. It's just like space is the other side of time.
Mm-hmm. Well, so if we look across the heavens to a star, for instance, it's not necessarily in the same time as us.
Right.
It's actually quite dead. It's bleaching out of existence. It is done, right? And it takes so long for that to travel to us. If we were to mark that in our sense of time, that doesn't make sense. We have to take into it that the time of creation or destruction or anywhere in between has maybe its own sense of time, and it's in that, and we're observing it. That's another sense of time that's engaged, because I don't have any way to notice something that's been burning for 1 billion years except for the momentary spark that I see. Right. So my sense of time is different than the time it's in. So, we're challenging ourselves in many ways here. Things we take for granted. So maybe that's part of it, John, is that time and space get so, and when we look to the star and all the physical space that's between us and that star, you don't have a sense of that unless you're really tracking where that star is. But where it looks it's just right there.
Right.
And it's not. It's way over there unless you track it by different means. So, all right. Well, this has been an interesting, fun adventure.
I love it. Even with the computer shut down, I think it actually was. I think that was quite timely.
Quite timely. That was in the moment, and it was us taking time out of play that it just really engaged. So,
and the other piece about how can it be in time of play? What was significant of it or not significant about it? That's the question I'll ask myself as I get off here. I was like, okay, what was the significance of that?
Because that's what I would offer people, is whatever happened in that sense of time was your sense of time, and that was changing.
Right.
And if we hold that awareness, we can allow that to be a quantum leap. We can allow that to just be, somebody made a mistake. We can allow that to be this wonderful unknown that's just got invited into our world that can bring a whole different reality to us. Right. So that's where John and I are at. We hope that you'll enjoy some sense of that. And John, until the next time.
Thank you much, sister. I really appreciate you playing this place.
Yeah. Here is one article about infinite being you might enjoy. Look at www.infinitebeing.com. And also Deepak Chopra has several YouTube videos on infinite being at his Chopra Well. If you're into the science of time, I recommend looking up theoretical physicist Carlo Rovelli. His recent work about time is The Order of Time. He has written several books about physics for the layman and has several YouTube excerpts also. You'll find links at this episode's website page, and his last name is Rovelli when you're looking him up. For a bit of clarity about the relationship of time and space, this next quote is from the Time and Space Description from the Barr's Manual of Access Consciousness that John provided. Time and space has to do with all the places in which you think time and space are connected, and must, out of necessity, be tied together, which eliminates the capacity to have the energy, space, and consciousness which will generate your life and puts you into the matter, space, and energy and time concept in order to create control. It always comes down to the control. And Goodreads has wonderful quotes about time for us. Here are a few. This quote, "Time is a created thing. To say I don't have time is like saying I don't want to," is attributed to Lao Tzu, but somehow I don't get the Chinese flavor in the language that one would expect. But I do like the quote. And another is "Time is an illusion," and Albert Einstein would surely know, wouldn't he? So here's one from Eckhart Tolle, "The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment." Time isn't precious at all, because it is an illusion. What you perceive as precious is not time, but the one point that is out of time, the now. That is precious indeed. The more you focus on time, past and future, the more you miss the now, the most precious thing there is. And this wraps it up kind of nicely for me from George Harrison. It's being here now that's important. There's no past and there's no future. Time is a very misleading thing. All there is ever is the now. We can gain experience from the past, but we can't relive it. And we can hope for the future, but we don't know if there is one. This is my episode 29 blog. Time is like silly putty. Time is one of our most powerful constructions. It tells us where we are at any one moment and in relation to where we were in other moments. It encompasses the spectrum of all that it ever was and might be. It is a clever device and keeps us in order. It keeps us regular. And like the Y2K movement of the beginning of the year of 2000, it can create uproar to think we would lose it. It is also a quality, a sense. It is thought and or feeling that is responsive to stimuli, be it thought or feeling. We must work at keeping it rigid. It has the quality of right now. It is a sense of having existed always. It creates continuity. It is what we have made it to be, and it is not at all what we think it is. It is a projection we are generating. Just consider how flexible we experience it. Working on a project, and time can drag, and time can expand, and we can lose our sense of time. It slips beyond our control all the time. It can generate pressure working for us or against us. It can be user-friendly or the enemy. We can feel it slipping away as if it was a form to be chased after, or like the wind. It is not rigid, ever. That is only the form we have given it, for we are up against it, counting on it, running out, so we can go on to the next thing. It shapes our to-do lists, our never-ending hot file on our desk. There is never enough time when you want your adventure to continue, the physical bliss to never end. What makes it sweeter at times is that you know it will end, and always too soon. It is precious when it is marked with a beginning and an end as a day off or a vacation. It also can be threatening when time taken off is marked by the penalty of the work left, the colleagues covering, the schedule that doesn't adapt well. Time is a measurement about the quality of a life. Newborn, young, adult, and aged are markers of what we have done, where we have been, what value we have held. It tracks our development and our worthiness. It is a powerful control mechanism we have organized. Time comes and goes, so we check in and check out at the time clock and in our mind. It never lies but can be manipulated. The past, a marking of time, is always present. The future is an assumption of time. We have no guarantee of a future, of time. We only have the present, the now. We make time, we take time, we massage time. What could be more malleable? Maybe it is silly putty, that malleable polymer blob of our childhood. Maybe time is like silly putty. You can imprint it, shape it, and stretch it, and even break it into pieces. Time is like silly putty to the infinite being. Tom shares with us about time in his piece, About Time, from his extensive meditation archive at Interlude, an internet retreat.
About time. Now may be a good moment to pause to contemplate our relationship with time. We can start by recognizing that the way we mark time is a function of our culture. We owe the January 1st start date of a new year to the Romans, who disconnected the calendar from the seasons and the moon. The Assyrians started the new year at the first crescent moon after the spring equinox. Not a bad idea to start your year at the beginning of the growing season. But the Romans had a different agenda. The imperial power structure was more important than anything else. Not only could the emperor name a month after himself, he could decide when the year started and how long it would be. Just notice that we inherited that from them. How does that inform who we are and how we relate to the planet and to power structures? We measure our days by clocks, mechanical devices that mark off hours that are arbitrary units unconnected with any natural process. A culture might mark the start of a day when the sun comes up, but we don't do that. Just notice that we as a society are good at mechanics and measuring by units, but are not so tuned into the natural rhythms. As the hands circumnavigate the clock face, we see them move, and we get the feeling that time is a path we travel. We look at timelines, and we can see that over to the left is long ago, and to the right is closer to now. The dotted line to the right of now is the future. We think of time as traveling a distance. The future is down the road, and we need to get there. Realize that such a notion is merely a construct. It's all made up. Time doesn't travel. It's not long or short. It's not a line. Time is merely an idea. What is real is the now. Now is the always moment. It doesn't go anywhere. What changes are the phenomena in our world. The world of a minute ago no longer exists. What exists now are the reverberations of that minute ago. An infinite number of previous conditions led to the existence of all that is right now. Everything is vibrating energy. Some things vibrate more slowly than others. Some waveforms are more stable than others, and those things tend to persist. Just as every wave in a pool of water affects all the others, and every movement of air in a weather system affects the whole, each act we make or don't make affects our lives and the lives of everybody else. What is now was generated from what was before, but what is now is all that is. We perceive the recent past in memory that is made up of sense impressions. If we strike a gong, the sound persists for a while after the strike. In the same way, our senses reverberate with recent experience, and so what was seems to persist. Those memories with significance are placed in long-term memory, so that the nerve firings in our brain as we recall a memory reflect in some fashion the nerve firings that occurred at the original moment of perception. These stored memories give us the impression that the past still exists, yet it does not, except in the reverberations that linger through their effects and our recollections. To experience the eternal now, we need to slow down the churning of thought. It takes effort of intention to just attend to the perception that is occurring moment by moment, and to withdraw attention from recollection of past and projection of future. As we shift into that present moment experience, we more readily perceive what is real and what is important. Our usual time-bound mode of perception tends to get caught up in the froth on top of the wave and misses the ocean itself. Let us choose to live more often in the present moment. Just breathe. Let go of the stream of thoughts. Notice the act of perception as it happens. And then the next act of perception. Sense the wave of existence as it is created moment by moment.
John's website is www.beingjohnashford.com, and he can be reached by email at john@beingjohnashford.com. Thank you for joining me here at Journeys to Enlightenment with Janet. A new episode is released every 2 weeks. Any questions or thoughts or guests you'd like to suggest, you can email me directly at Janet and Beyond Podcast at outlook.com. For more information about all the elements that make up each episode, they are on my podcast page at my website, www.janetandbeyond.com. While there, you will also find information about my other podcast show, Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and all about my work with clients. You can sign up to receive my regular weekly blog, Life in the Beyond, Journeys into Enlightenment. If you're looking for other regular opportunities to sit in heart-centered awareness with myself and others, you can join us in my Fuzzy Photons playground groups I offer on Wednesdays. Live interactive space via Zoom video conferencing. You can follow each episode of this podcast series on my YouTube channel, Journeys into Enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Till the next time, notice what feels different right in this moment. It is real, and it can last a lifetime.